Everybody, this is Dustin with www.gamblingonfreedom.com. I'm a certified hypnotherapist specializing in problem gambling, gambling addiction, compulsive gambling. And in today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about sports betting and the illusion of control. This is something that I mentioned quite a bit in the book, The Easy Way to Quit Gambling. It's available on Amazon. And in the book, it's going to go over all these different types of illusions, the illusion of control being one of the bigger illusions. And so, if you're struggling with sports betting, I want to say something clearly before we begin, and that is that sports betting does not feel like gambling, if that makes sense. It feels like intelligence, it feels like preparation, it feels like strategy, right? You know the quarterback stats, you know who's injured, last season's record, you know who performs under pressure, you know who struggles in cold weather, right? And because you know these things, you don't feel reckless. You feel informed. And that right there is the hook. This is kind of why sports betting feels different because slots feel random, right? Roulette feels random, but sports betting feels almost calculated. You're not just pulling a lever, right? Just trying to pull that lever and get the three things to line up. You're analyzing data. And when you analyze data, your brain gives you a sense of control, gives you some power, right? Gives you that sense of control. But here's the problem, right? Because control and prediction are not the same thing. And sports betting quietly convinces you that they are, right? It sort of gives you this false sense of security. So there's a difference between logical information and emotional certainty. For example, flying is statistically the safest mode of transportation. Planes are built to withstand turbulence far worse than you'll ever experience on the plane. Pilots train for years. Engines can fail and planes can still land safely. And yet, people panic mid flight. Why? Because logical information is actually not the strongest form of information. Emotional and experiential information is actually stronger. What you feel overrides what you know. Now, flip that, right? In sports betting, you feel secure because you know the stats. But knowing the stats does not give you influence. You are not on the field. You are not calling the plays. You are not giving the halftime speech. You are observing from the outside, hoping your projection aligns with reality. And so imagine a team is down 10 points at halftime. Statistically, they shouldn't win. But something happens in the locker room. The energy shifts, beliefs shift, momentum shifts, adrenaline rises, a pep talk happens, motivational speech occurs, and suddenly, just like that, the game changes. Why? Because emotion affects performance, state affects performance, confidence affects performance. So here's the key: you cannot factor emotional momentum into a spreadsheet. You cannot calculate belief. You cannot predict state changes with certainty. And yet, you convince yourself that because you've analyzed the numbers, that you have all the control. And this goes, way back. Let's go back to when we were kids, right? We played things like basketball, softball, football, dodgeball. And in those games, skill mattered. Right? If you practiced more, you improved. If you learned the mechanics, you performed better. If you lost a few games, you believed you could win the next one. There was influence. Effort equaled outcome more often than not, right? So your nervous system learned, if I understand the game, I can win. That belief is a healthy belief in life, right? It works in school, it works in business, it works in relationships. But gambling hijacks that belief because in gambling, you have zero influence over the final outcome, even in sports betting. You know, the dangerous part is when you actually win, when you place a bet based on research and then it hits. Your nervous system doesn't say that was, probability variance, right? Probability variance. It says, I knew it, right? That feeling of being right. That is just dopamine, right? That is reinforcement. And that is your brain stamping essentially the experience as meaningful. and it becomes addictive because now you know, now you're not chasing the money, right? Now you're chasing validation. You're chasing confirmation of your own intelligence that you know what you're doing, right? And so, because of this, winning can actually be a little bit more dangerous than losing a lot of the time. Losing hurts, of course. Winning reinforces identity, right? When you lose, you feel frustrated. But when you win, you feel powerful. And power is intoxicating, especially when it feels earned, right? You start thinking, if I refine my system, if I research more, if I track patterns better. But the uncomfortable truth is no amount of analysis removes randomness, right? No amount of analysis removes randomness. Sports events contain too many uncontrollable variables: injuries mid-game, ref calls, weather shifts, human error, emotional states, luck, right? And so these are all just different variances. And so instead of predicting certainty, you're predicting chaos, right? And sports betting operates on what's called a variable reward schedule. So you don't win every time, but you win just enough. And that just enough is what wires the addiction. If you lost every time, you'd quit. If you won every time, the house wouldn't exist. And so the system gives you intermittent wins, and intermittent wins create the strongest behavioral conditions known. Your nervous system becomes hypersensitive to anticipation, and anticipation itself is addictive. It's not about money. Most people think they're chasing the money. If you've watched this channel before, I've gone over this a lot. You're never actually chasing the money. They're just chasing the state change. It's not about the money. It's the feeling underneath, the feeling that they believe they're going to feel if they got the money. That's what they're chasing. So when you place a bet, something happens physiologically. The heart rate increases, the focus sharpens, the adrenaline rises. There's almost a narrowing of attention. When the game starts, you're locked in, right? When it's close, your nervous system spikes. When you win, relief floods your body. That relief feels like safety, and your nervous system is wired to move towards safety. Always. It's always protection. Your nervous system is wired for protection, safety, and survival. We're not wired for happiness. We're not wired for success. So even artificial safety is still safety to the nervous system, even if it's just perceived. And this is why logic essentially can't stop it, right? You can know that this is costing me. This is unsustainable. I need to stop gambling. I'm losing all my money. And yet you still place the bets, because addiction is not a logic problem. It's a regulation problem. It lives in the body, in the nervous system. That's why why someone can know, planes are safe and still panic mid-flight, and why someone can know sports betting is risky and still feel compelled to do it, because logic doesn't override emotional survival patterns. It's interesting. I do have people tell me sometimes that I don't want to quit. I just want to become a professional gambler. So let's kind of unpack that a little bit. Are there disciplined professional bettors? Yes, there are. But statistically, very few, and even then, many professionals are still psychologically dependent on the state change. Just because someone profits doesn't mean they're free, right? And for most people, the idea of becoming a professional gambler is not about a business. It's about legitimatizing the addiction. It's about telling themselves, I'm not addicted. I'm not addicted to this. I'm strategic, right? But if your emotional state collapses when you lose, if you feel restless when you're not betting, if you chase losses, that's not business. That's dependency, right? And so the root of all this, it isn't intelligence. It's not stupidity. It's not lack of discipline. It's this. You equate the prediction with safety. You equate knowledge with control. You equate control with relief, and relief feels like survival. So your nervous system keeps pulling you back into the entire system because that relief is what it's been chasing. It's not because you're broken. but because your body learned that anticipation plus relief equals temporary safety. It's all about moving away from that pain and towards that pleasure. If you've watched this channel before, you know I talk a lot about pain versus pleasure. We have all this buildup of tension and uh, all the stress from our life and all these things, and something eventually hits where we can no longer take the stress or the pain or the loneliness or the sadness or whatever it is, and whatever might have been creating that, and then we have to move towards pleasure. Our nervous system will make us do that, right? So it's not more research that you need. It's not more restrictions that you need. It's not white knuckling with willpower that you need. It's learning to regulate your nervous system without these artificial spikes. It's learning to tolerate uncertainty without trying to conquer it. It's learning to sit with discomfort without escaping into prediction. It's identity work, because when your identity shifts from, I can beat the system because I'm a professional gambler, to I don't need the system because I don't care about being a gambler, everything will change. And the identity shift that changes sort of helps you stop trying to prove you're smart, if that makes sense. You stop trying to out strategize randomness. You stop trying to engineer certainty and chaos, and you start building internal steadiness instead. Because real security doesn't come from predicting an outcome. It comes from being stable regardless of the outcome. That's true freedom. Regardless if you win or lose, you're stable enough internally that it doesn't matter. The winning is great. The losing is just whatever. It makes no difference. That's freedom. And so if this video kind of feels uncomfortably accurate, that's good. That means you're not stupid, you're not weak, you're not irrational. You're operating from a nervous system that learned to associate anticipation and relief with safety. And that pattern can be rewired. Sports betting addiction isn't about odds, it's about state. And once you understand that, you can stop fighting with yourself, with your logic, and you can start regulating yourself with awareness. And that's where the real change begins. So if this video was helpful for you guys, I do have a link below to a free consultation. Typically, we'll just chat and see where things are with you. If you have any desire to get out of a gambling problem, if you or someone else has a gambling problem and you're ready to rid of that for good, I'll leave that link in the description below. You can also check out my book on Amazon. It's called The Easy Way to Quit Gambling. It looks like this, and it's exposing the illusions that keep you hooked and how to break free for good. In this book, I go over all these different illusions: the illusion of control, the illusion of hope, the illusion of freedom, the illusion of relief, the illusion of entertainment, right? All these different illusions, because the truth is, so long as you believe that gambling is serving you in any way whatsoever, you will continue to gamble, even if you truly want to quit. If you believe at the subconscious level that it's helping you, it's serving you, it's giving you anything, whether that's a false sense of relief, a false sense of security, a false sense of hope, anything, you'll continue to gamble. It will only break when you realize that it does absolutely nothing for you. Outside of that, I do have a nervous system manual. It's a reset manual in the link below. So I have those three links in the description below if you guys want to take a look or look at any of these other resources. Until the next one, take care for now, guys.